welcome to the LifePro program, where today I have Dr. Zack Bein. Zack and I, man, we go back since childhood. I think of you as a little brother. We spent a lot of time, playing basketball, baseball, ping pong, and tons of video games. But
Yeah.
today, I'm honored to have you on my program. Did a little bit of research as far as like all your accomplishments through the years, and I'm really proud of what you've been able to accomplish and where you've gotten to. That being said, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you.
what? Why don't you start out and tell us a little bit about yourself? What are you
Yeah,
doing now?
sure. Um, well, yes, we are childhood friends, and that's it does, and it's part of I guess it's part of what led me to my interest was being especially I felt kind of needy of connection when I was when I was a kid, because I wasn't really, um, through various reasons, I had medical problems and I wasn't very accepted by my peers. And you actually were the one person even close to my peer group at a certain stage in my life when things were really bad, um, that I would hang out with, that would hang out with me.
Right.
And so you have a permanent place in my heart, and my family's too. I mean, because of how generous and caring and thoughtful and kind you were and are. So um, luckily I've healed a lot since then, as when I was young, and it brought me to the field of psychology just through my own fascination with the suffering that I went through, and the suffering that I witnessed other people going through that never made sense to me at the hands of other people. It just never made sense to me. I was always very fascinated by that in human behavior, and so that's essentially what led me on that path towards psychology. And then, of course, a number of other things have happened since then to inform exactly what I do, but in general, I think I've always been kind of interested in behavior and connection.
Right. So, Life Pro podcast is the manual to life. I like to say that everything in life comes with a manual except for life itself. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to educate people through every episode. And today's topic is human connection, and you alluded to that. And there's different facets of human connection. Um, but what is human connection to you? What does that mean?
So, are you asking the human or the scientists right now?
Uh, Both. I like
Okay.
to hear both sides.
Yeah. I think my natural response is um, taking care of one another, and not just taking care of one another, but protecting each other. And this is not something that this is a novel idea. We've had to take care of each other since always. Uh, we are mammals. We are completely dependent. If when we come out of our mothers, we are completely helpless and dependent on the other, on someone else.
Right.
So so our attachment system, what we call it, that natural system that says, I'm a baby, I'm helpless, and I need you to help me. That system is what guides and what allows for humans to connect and take care of one another. And it's what also makes it feel like sometimes survival. If you've ever had a bad breakup or um, or a loss, sometimes you could feel like yourself, like that your own survival is at risk, and that's because it's that built into our bones. So we need it just like we need food and water. So on a primal level, and then there's tons of research to show that it improves the quality of your life, that money doesn't do it. Chasing dopamine doesn't do it. It's the quality of your intimate connections, it turns out, that actually informs your happiness the most in this life. Um, so so what is connection? It's our natural ability, our evolutionary built-in capacity to see, acknowledge, soothe, express delight in, and
Right.
encourage each other.
So is it simply being cared for? Like somebody loves you, somebody cares about you, wants the best for you. Um, does it, and how is the human connection different based on a forced connection, which is family, like we don't choose
Mm,
our family,
correct.
versus our friends and maybe a spouse that we actually go out and choose.
Right.
How does that connection differ between family and friendship?
So you said it. You can't pick your parents. So, and you can't pick, more specifically, you can't pick the environment that you are brought up in that familial dynamic. So, um, and in those first few years of life, you're forming what's called your internal working model of attachment and of your ability to number one, get your needs met. Number two, feel confident. Children learn that they can take care of themselves by learning that they can be taken care of through that modeling. So um, it's incumbent upon the parents to provide the child with an environment that makes the child feel A, that their needs are important, and B, that if they have a need, that it can be met in this lifetime, and that they don't have to throw a temper tantrum or scream and yell in order to get their needs met, that all they have to do is ask, just that just baby, I do this because this is what babies do when they protest, when they need something. They go like this, and an attuned parent, uh, a securely attached parent, will see that and go, "Oh, my baby needs something. Let me get down on its level and see what it needs. Oh, you're hungry. You're upset because you're hungry. Here, let's give you some food." um, that baby's learning that its needs are important and that it has caregivers that will meet its needs, and
Mm.
that translates then to answer the second part of the question into adulthood. Children who had to throw a tantrum to get their needs met turn into adults who feel like they need to throw tantrums in relationships, for example, or find themselves throwing tantrums in relationships and not knowing why, or finding themselves unable to stop once they've started.
Mm.
And it's not because they want to do that, it's because they've learned that that's the only way that they'll get their needs met. And so, this our family forms our basic model for connection. Is connection possible? Is it safe? And in my field, obviously, the people who come to me, it wasn't. It wasn't
Right.
safe. It wasn't safe. And so, and that is what the majority of our mental health facilities are filled with adults for whom their first few years was not safe and not attuned, not soothing, not encouraging.
Right.
So the importance of the family is is a whole nother topic than adult friendship, adult intimacy, that it's just we're talking about totally different things, but we're also talking that the model formed in the childhood is what then informs how you relate to your
Mhm.
intimate partners, your work, your friends, your bosses, whatever it is. It's all informed by what you learned in those first few years from your family.
Right. So what you do with your patients is you attempt to rewire everything that was learned at a young age. Is that essentially what happens?
Yeah, I think
And
that's basically what happens. Yes.
how difficult is that to relearn these things?
So it all depends on the severity of the attachment disturbance.
Yeah.
So the obviously the longest road to recovery there is when you have an attachment figure who was scary or
Yeah.
who was abusive or violent or hostile,
Right.
because very simply, well, yeah, sort of simply put, you have the attachment system that's saying, go towards mommy, go towards daddy. You need them to survive. And
Right.
then you have the equally natural sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, which says, as you're going towards mom and dad, oh, this is actually scary. This is not safe.
Mhm.
And so you get this approach, withdraw, and uh, that is called the disorganized attachment style, and in adults we call that unresolved or cannot classify. But nonetheless, that is the those folk take the longest to heal, um, for sure, because there's a whole process that we have to go through of just helping them imagine a parent figure that is not threatening. And
Right.
sometimes we'll have to just, I had one patient that just could not imagine. He had a very violent father, couldn't imagine a father figure that wasn't aggressive or violent, and ended up with the Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. I know you know
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
character. So he can just jump and flop on him and roll and cuddle and be soft with his Marshmallow Man dad, and that's what worked. So
Yeah.
that's what we did.
Yeah.
So you have to be quite creative, but which is what I love about it partly. But in general, you can restructure an insecure attachment system in 6 to 9 months with
Right.
really directed intensive work.
Yeah. So once you get them, once we get your patients to a healthy level,
Yes.
and let's assume that we're, our mass audience is at a healthy level of human,
Yeah.
attachment
Sure.
with their parents.
Sure.
Let's speak to like just general human connection. And
Yeah.
you and I have had this discussion um, previously about the different layers of
Yeah.
human connection. And what I like to focus on a lot is how we can improve our quality of life. If we are happy, how can we be happier?
Mm.
So I'd love to kind of hear about the different layers that you have. And I know you talked about your ABCD program. I'd love to hear more about that if you can get into that.
Yeah. Um, it's not it's just a model. So it's a model for attachment, for human connection, that we know if you have this model in place, it's going to lead to better outcomes in your life across the board, and specifically well-being, specifically happiness. Um, and the model is pretty simple, that people who score the highest on these measures have usually one A person, and your A person, it usually ends up being your romantic partner, but it doesn't have to. It could be a best friend, it could be a brother, sister,
Mhm.
father, mother, anybody. But the point is that you're connecting every single day. And that when you do connect, it's meaningful, it's intimate, it's authentic, it's holding each other to account. It's not weather and politics. Maybe there's some politics, but um, it's real talk, and it's a strong connection. And every day you're checking in, and you have a specific amount of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day, where you're dedicated to just connecting and saying, "How was your day? What did you do?"
So do you I mean, I know that based on my experience and the experience of the people within my circle, we live very busy lives.
Yes,
They're constant, whether it's work, family, um, life just comes at you. What advice do you have for people like us? Should you make it like, okay, every day at this time we're gonna check in and we're gonna
absolutely,
talk, like make it very formal?
100%. If that's what
Okay.
it takes, yeah.
Right. So you
It,
you talk to them about the reasons why we need to do this, the reasons why we
oh,
need to connect.
100%. And
Yeah.
it's there was this one seminal kind of study in this area that showed we're looking at factors that lead to overall well-being,
Right.
and looking at money and looking at intimate connections. Money makes people happier, of course, up to a certain point.
Right.
And then once you have essentially what you need, if you start going up more, your happiness goes down.
Wow. Imagine that.
That's a study. That's in I can't reference the author off my head, but you can
I
find
believe
it
it.
on the internet, right?
I
Uh,
believe it. But everybody thinks the opposite, right? Everybody
correct.
thinks the more that you have,
Well, of
the
course,
happier you are. Yeah.
because we live in a capitalist
Yeah.
society, and money, 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 greed,
Yeah.
greed, greed, baby.
You're
That's what
you're
runs.
not you're not quoting Big Papa, right? Somebody else.
Sometimes it happens. It just comes through me.
But
Uh,
yeah, I mean, when you really sit down and think about it, like that makes a lot of sense. Like we live in a materialistic world, and this is probably another topic for another show, but we equate material things with happiness, and what we find is we get those things, we get better cars, bigger houses, these material things, and they just don't satisfy us.
no.
We
And the
we
more you get of it, actually, it starts to just become stressful, and you
Yeah,
start to just become paranoid.
yeah.
And yeah,
Let me
and
let me ask you a question. Do more friends equal more happiness? Like if somebody has a
it's
million
not the
friends,
amount, it's the quality.
quality. It's a quality of friends.
It's the quality. And that's why I teach this
Uh,
having one A, having 4 to 6 Bs.
okay, so who's the B? Who are the Bs?
Okay. And I mostly am training people how to have B relationships. Your A person hopefully will come out of those B relationships, maybe.
Right.
But oftentimes people don't focus on the B's. They want the A. They want their A, and they're just going after
Yeah.
their A, neglecting their B's. And then when the A goes away, because sometimes that happens,
Happens. Right.
there's nothing left. You feel like you have nothing. You're falling into the abyss. If you have 4 to 6 Bs, and Bs are people, all you have to do is talk to them once or twice a week,
Mm.
10, 15 minutes on the phone, but that it's the same quality. It's the same intimacy and vulnerability and honesty. And um, if that A person leaves that spot for whatever reason, you've got those people to catch you. And in my experience, professionally and personally, that is the number one thing that will allow us to be resilient, to uh, go through the regular old difficulties of life, not just the pathologies that I work with, but just the regular old difficulties, loss, pain, sickness. We all have that. And without those those bees to catch us, and that support system, we're going to feel like a 0 to 2 year old in a room by himself. It's like,
Right.
what do I do here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do we get to then? So bees, do the bees come from the seas?
So, C's, anyway, you want to have a smattering of C's, and the C's are just like your once or twice a month people,
Right.
and they're getting, and as you go down, it's getting, of course, less intimate, obviously, as well, and
Right.
less emotional investment, but um, yeah, the less importance on the C's, more importance on the B's, and that and the way that I teach to find the B's is through screening people through the 5 qualities that allow for secure attachment. Safety. Do you feel safe with this person? Yes? Good. Go to number 2. Attunement. Do they see you? Do they know you? Or do they see someone else? Do you not feel known and seen by them?
Do they get you?
Yeah. 3. Can they soothe you if you're upset? Or do they go, hey, don't worry about it, because they don't want to be bothered. So or are they willing to go there with you?
Yeah.
4. Do they express delight in your being? When you see them, are they happy? Do they light
Right.
up when they see you? That's a
Right.
good sign if they do.
Yeah.
5, do they encourage your best self, your strongest self? They have no agenda for you.
Right.
If you want it and it's about your most unique, strongest self, they will support that. If they can do those 5 things, or at least a majority of those 5 things, good enough,
Hmm.
it's probably a good B.
Right. So they add value to your being. They lift you up and they accept you for who you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think like you going through those things, I'm like my mind is racing about all those people in my life that do that,
Yeah.
and I'm drawn to those people. Like unconsciously, I want to keep that human connection with those people because of our innate human needs of like wanting to be loved and cared for.
Yeah.
That you talked about, and that all like boosts our serotonin levels and help us like release the happy. We talked about
Release
releasing the
the happy.
happy. So I thought that that was like a cool thing that you said when we talked earlier, even though you don't remember it. Uh, releasing the happy through human connection, I think is really cool. Do you want to touch on the D's a little bit? We talked about ABCs. Are D's like
Oh,
acquaintances,
yeah, these are just these
people
are
that you?
not even really part of I call it the ABC model. I don't really even talk to. I don't really even
I
speak.
mean, simply to like go to the supermarket and smile at somebody and say hi.
Exactly.
Uh,
That's an
even so, if
elderly.
somebody smiles at you and says hi, it becomes infectious, right? It lifts
Oh,
your mood.
100%.
Yeah,
There's science behind that too. We have
right,
what's called mirror neurons, and when
right,
someone else smiles and shows good intention towards
right,
us, we sponge in that good intention.
right,
They should be, Dan Siegel, UCLA MD. He says they should be called sponge neurons. It's like we sponge in what we see.
right.
And so, yes, every time you do smile and wave at someone at the grocery store, and likewise, every time you snarl
Yeah.
or give someone a dirty look, they're sponging that in too.
So let's talk about the different types of connection, right? Obviously, I would think that face-to-face connection is the best. Then you have, a phone call, a video call, and then we have social media and text messaging. Um, there's different ways to connect with somebody.
Sure.
Uh, talk to the different. Talk to me about the different levels and the effects of that.
So, different people have different opinions here. I think there's a couple things that are just obvious, and the stakes are higher when it's in person. At least it feels that way because you don't have this buffer. You can't read it and then take a second to think about the best response and then craft it and proofread it and like run it through all these different filters and whatnot. You have
Mm,
to actually be there with the person. And there is no filters in real life, IRL. So
yeah,
so it's more intimate, and therefore I would argue more meaningful.
Mhm.
Um, but in this day and age, like you spoke to earlier, we take what we can get. So I can't sit here and say that I haven't received a text message from my partner that hasn't made my face light up and make my day better. So I'm not going to tell people not to do that.
Right.
Um, but I will say that if you can connect in person, it's always better. It's
Yeah.
always better. Yeah.
But connecting in any way that you can. Even
Anyway,
yeah, even I mean, even on our on our birthdays, we get text messages and it just makes us feel connected to
feels
that person. It feels good,
yeah,
right? You're
yeah,
being acknowledged. Even though I'm not a huge birthday person, I still really enjoy when somebody that might be in my C or D that I haven't
yeah,
spoke to in a long time
exactly.
reaches out and just like acknowledges me and like, hey, I'm thinking
Yeah.
about you. It means a lot. Um, Along the same topics, Instagram and Facebook, people I know people that post constantly. Everything they do in their lives, they're posting.
The
And they're getting
influencers.
and they're getting messages and they're getting likes, and that gives them that human connection. That what is your opinion of that?
Um, I don't know that I don't know that that's the quality of connection. In fact, I for sure know that that's not the quality of connection that
Right.
I'm talking about.
Because it's not intimate.
It's not intimate and it's not authentic.
Right.
You're broadcasting. You're putting the best sides of yourself. But what about all the other sides
Yeah.
that we all have?
Yeah, we all have
You know,
we all I mean, newsflash, we all have problems.
yeah,
And it's funny, like you go and I'm sure you can look at a lot of your friends, they never post bad stuff. Like
right.
most people, it's always about positive. It's always about look at I'm at this club, I'm doing this, I'm at this party, I'm doing this, I'm
Yeah,
having so much fun. I'm having more fun than you. That's
yeah,
what they're saying.
yeah.
But behind the scenes, it's just a facade.
We're all human,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
and I think that like that going back to like that connection is intimate because we're talking about the good, we're sharing in the good, we're sharing in the bad, and we're supporting
Exactly.
ourselves. And I think technology, Instagram, Facebook has like changed things and like
Yeah,
and not and taking that intimacy away. And
yeah.
I think that people might be wasting their time. I hate to use the word waste, but on those social media platforms
As a
and
sole pursuit,
yeah, of the human connection.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think so
so
too. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's, and I don't, I've been posting more often now because of this podcast, like to
Mhm.
bring people together, and obviously it's helping
Sure.
me find guests, and my sole purpose is to just like put out good content and
Yeah,
add value to somebody's life.
for
Um,
sure.
and that's also less that's led me to some connections, right?
Yeah,
Like you and I are talking now, and
yeah,
we've been busy and not been able to connect as often. So I think that one's kind of led to the other, which is
yeah,
fantastic. So maybe if you use Instagram and Facebook for good and not evil, uh,
yeah.
good to like
Use
keep
it to set up your appointments to connect and not to do the connecting. Right.
right,
Yeah,
right. Find that balance, right? In
yeah,
aspect of life, I think you just need balance and not to overindulge in something that might not be so great for you. So why not take that time and instead of posting or liking messages, take that time
hey,
and
make
make a
a
phone
call.
call. Yeah, make a call and connect with somebody and really get back to that intimate connection. Um, so tell me, you talked about your adult attachment program, but talk to me a little bit specifically about how that works and the type of people that come to you and what you do for
Sure.
people.
We get all spectrum from very highly functioning, well off people to actually quite low functioning people. And The intervention is we have an assessment called the adult attachment interview, which I'm trained in scoring and analyzing. So we start out with analyzing a person's attachment style, seeing where it falls in a very wide range of nuanced categories on a spectrum. And then based on what we find, where there were unmet needs, we fill those needs in through co-creating guided imagery. I get to use some of my meditation skills in that way. And so it kind of was a perfect marriage for me because it's therapy and meditation at the same time. And in that way, we set a plan, we help the client build ideal parent figures that are guided by those 5 qualities that promote secure attachment. Once they're able to do that, then we work with what we call activations or triggers and what's happening with them in the present moment in their life. And then we go back to find a memory that is similar. So just a quick example, like I got my boss yelled at me. Okay, so a memory for that. Now I'm 5 and my mom's in the kitchen and she's yelling at me, right? And then we have the ideal parent figures come in to the memory and literally be with the client exactly how they would want to, their parents to have been with them. And we're not demonizing their real parents. We're not even saying they were bad. We're just saying there's always unmet needs and no parent is perfect. And we get to fill in those unmet needs using our imagination because we actually, if I were to sit here and tell you to imagine that I was just poking you over and over in the stomach, eventually you'd kind of be upset. You'd start to get pissed off and nothing's happening. It's all in your imagination. So in the same way, we can imagine parents with these five conditions beaming at us. And we will feel it. We will have that corrective emotional experience over time with somebody who's trained and good, and it heals people. I started my practice 2 years ago, and we now have 2 interns and a 41 people caseload. People are getting better from this. And that's just like you, that's what I want to provide to people in this world is an opportunity to just suffer less and heal more. And so that's what we do. And we do individual work. We're in a group. We're doing a group right now. We have online self-paced courses, all sorts of ways to, yeah.
How does somebody know that they need your program? How do they identify that they have this issue and I need to get help for it?
So you have patterns of being in your life that you want to be able to change, and that for some reason you just haven't been able to. A pattern of being with a partner, a pattern of being in your career. Do you feel like an imposter in your career, or do you really feel like you own your experience? Do you have unresolved trauma or loss? These are all reasons that people come to us, because attachment also heals trauma. So it's unhealthy patterns in relationship, unhealthy patterns in work, unhealthy patterns with friends that you can't break out of. We can help you break out of those patterns.
Great. So we talked about a lot here today, and I thought that was really a lot of insight and a lot of good nuggets, I like to call. One thing I ask everybody that's on my show, what is one thing that you want to teach the world? What would that be?
Take care of each other.
Take care of each other. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, and it goes back to human connection. You know, if you take care of somebody else will take care of you, and
That's right.
reciprocate. Um, Also, what is one book that had a major impact on your life that you think everybody should read?
Oh, everybody?
Well,
Well, if I actually have it right next to me, but this I don't know that everyone's going to read this one, but this
that's
is
that's a big book.
this
It's
is Attachment Disturbances in Adults by Dan Brown and my mentor David Elliott, mentor and colleague. Um, and this book, it's a little sciencey, but it's also like to use for reference. It 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 describes attachment theory really well for adults and how it's possible to get caught up in unhealthy patterns, what those patterns are, and how to get out of them. So, um, but even if you're not going to read it, put it in your bookshelf because one day it'll come in handy. I promise.
yeah. And then my last question is, how can somebody get in touch with you?
TheAdultAttachmentProgram.com. Join our email list, contact us through the website. We're, like I said, we're in the middle of a group right now, but we'll have another one hopefully for the winter. We've got more training stuff coming up for clinicians that want to get involved in this stuff. So the website is the best way, theadultattachmentprogram.com.
Great, Dr. Bein. I had such a good time. I hope you found some value in this, and I hope everybody enjoys this. Please like, share, follow, and help us spread the word. Thank you so much.